Bitcoin is currently in a battle to hold 42K, which seems to be the main level in my eyes. But a lot of people are talking about 40K and what would happen if Bitcoin breaks back down below that price. I'm going to take a look at the chart and all of the news. There is so much of it driving the markets today. You guys don't want to miss this one. So let's go.
Let's go.
What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of All Streets. Before we get started, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and gently tap the like button with your left elbow. Got to use your left elbow because the right elbow is worn out from all the tapping that we did over the past few days. Guys, I hope that you're all having a wonderful day. I know that I am. Bitcoin is making people go nuts because it's basically chopping sideways and doing nothing. And you see when that happens that people start to go crazy. They start to talk about these crazy targets and huge breakdowns and huge moves, but in reality, not much is happening. And we're sitting on a key support right at 42,000. To me, there's not very much to talk about unless we see a weekly break below 42,000, in which case we can start talking about lower prices. But of course, the question that's posed here is what happens if we break down? What happens if we go below 40,000? Well, first of all, to me, 40,000 is a psychological level and not really a key level on the chart. But what happens? I don't know. We buy more Bitcoin. It's a very simple answer. I know that everyone's terrified. What happens if it goes to 25? What happens if it goes to 30? What happens if it goes to 35? Well, do any of you not believe that Bitcoin is going to trade at much higher prices down the road? In 5 years, do you think the price will be higher than it is now? If so, then you should not be fearful of a drop. You should be salivating at the opportunity to buy more Bitcoin if any of those things happen. So why has Bitcoin been trading sideways? Why has it been dipping? Obviously, we had the China FUD last week, tons of volatility on Friday. But what's really going on behind the scenes with this China FUD? What's really going on? Investors used the crypto crash after China's ban to buy the most Bitcoin in 4 months last week. That's from CoinShares. I was screaming it. A lot of people were screaming it. That FUD was nonsense. We all know that what happened in China was just a reiteration of what's been happening before, right? Not a big deal. No huge news here. Nothing really changing, but a huge dip over 5% in a matter of hours because of that China news. Smart investors, whales, they bought that dip because they know that it's an irrational FUD and an opportunity because of a drop that should not have happened. And that is supported here by the data. As it says, investors across the board had the highest volume of buying that we've seen in months. And that's not only in the United States or Europe or anywhere else. That's also in China. China crypto investors are buying more as Beijing circles. Interesting, right? The data shows that Chinese crypto whales are still continuing to buy the dip, even though they're the ones most likely to be affected by this FUD. It seems that the situation on the ground is not at all the same situation that we're hearing about in the media. This is being reported by Bloomberg. This isn't like some random crypto site. This is actually the case, what's happening on the ground in China. So moving on to the next story. Speaking of countries and Bitcoin, this is a little interesting. Nobody knows who controls the keys to El Salvador's Bitcoin. That's according to a Block Bank exec. Block Bank's head of operations, Novia Serrano, said it's unclear who controls El Salvador's private Bitcoin keys, and that's a problem. Now, what's interesting is the keys are not the only thing, which is it's really interesting. I wonder if I would have assumed that they obviously had their coins in custody somewhere, Coinbase custody, something like that, potentially. But you still have private keys. So who controls the keys? What happens if that person dies? Is that person just the president, nobody else? What systems do they have in place? I'm not particularly concerned about El Salvador, but it just begs the question of how nation states and huge organizations set this up to be foolproof. It's much easier, obviously, as an individual to protect your coins. It's annoying, but it's much easier, right? Why? Because, you know, you put your keys somewhere, you put them in a safety deposit box, you set up your multi-sig, you tell your wife where it is, you put your systems in place. But what happens if, I don't know, a presidential regime changes, right? What if a different president gets elected and the president's the one who has it? Is it someone in the treasury? Begs a lot of questions. There's also questions here about other things I was reading about as we went through it. There's a lot of transparency issues, like people don't know who's choosing the providers for the Chivo wallet. and others. So the question really is, who's in charge in El Salvador of the Bitcoin? Who makes the decision of when to buy the dip? We see the president tweeting about buying the dip. Is he literally just buying the dip himself with access to a exchange account on Coinbase? How is that working? How is that going to work with other countries? These are interesting questions, and El Salvador is a very interesting case. We should all be watching very closely to see how this experiment plays out, because that will likely determine the way that countries come in to this space in the future, right? So let's take a quick look at the Bitcoin chart here. As I said, for me, 42,000 right here, key level. Why? I'm going to tell you again. I know you've heard it a million times. That was the end of the pump up from 20K when we finally broke the all-time high after years. Consolidated there a month. Tesla breakout, $1.5 billion Tesla purchase. The dump, obviously, that we saw in May, and then 3 more months of consolidation under that line. When this is the first test as support. You want to see resistance tested as support. That's what's happening. Now we just need to see it hold. Right now, 42,218 after a small wick below, which also coincidentally hit the 38.2% fib level. Well, let's see if this holds on the weekly. We once again have to just watch and wait until Sunday. As you can see here on the daily, I talked about this yesterday. Really good lesson. You look for RSI to break out before you see price breakout. Well, when we were talking about this yesterday, RSI was above the line, but I said you have to wait for confirmation before you trade anything. Always wait for confirmation as a trader. Confirm breakout unless you get a fake out. Well, we had a fake out so far and are once again back below resistance. But interestingly, we have 40,596 here, right? That's also on the 12-hour, 6-hour, 4-hour. That was the low swing low close on all of them. If we see price drop below that, if we see something like this, we will likely end up with a higher low on RSI and a bullish divergence. We'll likely see that on multiple time frames, not just the daily, but you can see it here on the 4-hour, right? We would have probably a very massive bullish divergence if price comes down here. So I'm not particularly concerned about another major drop. I don't think we even need it, but if we do get it, if we see a close below 40,596, I'll be watching very closely for a massive bullish divergence. And once again, here on the daily, I think that we're now very clearly in a descending wedge. I've shown this resistance a few times. You can see that price is also battling. While 42K is important, we also have this 43K level at the top of this old range. This was that range we were in for 3 months. Flipped it to support. We want to see that back again as support. But ultimately, a break of this blue line to me would signal that we are out of the woods here. But guys, this is just a really tight chop, in my opinion. Not much to go on here. A lot of people will draw maybe a small, sort of bear pennant here, which is possible. But I think we would just need to see which way it breaks. You'd have the flagpole here, small pennant. Obviously, that line is more like that. After you have this small sort of bear flag here. Did I say bull pennant? I meant bear pennant if I did. And then you would see maybe another drop. That's why people are kind of giving targets of the 37 region, I think, looking for something kind of like this, right? Maybe comes down, maybe even comes down all the way to the EQ of the channel around 36,000. But like I said, if we see a breakdown, in my opinion, at this point, it is not a signal of a bear market. It's just another level where you look for a dip, and those dips are for buying. We are in a macro bull market. You look at this weekly chart. This is a macro bull market, guys. Sorry, this is a macro bull market. We were at 3,800 just a year and a half ago. 3,800 just a year and a half ago. There's no reason to think that we're coming back down to any major low. Every dip, to me, is a buying opportunity. This is probably the biggest news that kind of not going so heavily reported. Coinbase to allow U.S. users to deposit paychecks directly in crypto. Really cool. You'll be able to do an automatic deposit into Coinbase, your paycheck or otherwise. A really good way for dollar cost averaging, but allowing people in the United States to put all of their paycheck or part of their paycheck into Coinbase, and they can keep it in dollars or go into crypto, and there's no fees. So basically, they're acting like a bank account here as well, right? I mean, savings accounts in the United States get no yield anyways, or anywhere else, I would imagine, for that matter. But you can now put your dollars in there. You can put them to work immediately, dollar cost averaging, or you can put your dollars in there and wait for the opportunity to buy on a dip. This is absolutely huge news, another big step towards mainstream adoption. I'm surprised that we haven't seen much more about this. Now, this is a really interesting story. The Ethereum developer Virgil Griffith pleads guilty to conspiracy charge in North Korea sanctions case. Yeah, I remember digging into this back in 2019, 20. Griffith was charged with violating sanctions laws by giving a cryptocurrency and blockchain presentation at a North Korean conference in 2019. This guy's going to go to jail for a really, really long time for this. And there's really not much clarity, including apparently from his lawyers. They didn't really understand what he was being charged with or what his violation was. But he did plead and said that, he's been very depressed, wanted to basically get it over with. And now he's going to likely go to jail for quite a long time. Monday's agreement caps off nearly 2 years of legal back and forth between attorneys for the prosecution and Griffith. Defense attorneys repeatedly requested clarity about the charges being brought. Strange, right? Strange that he has no idea really what he's being charged with, and he's going to go to jail for breaking laws for simply giving a blockchain talk in North Korea. Not much freedom there. I don't really know how to judge this story until we have more information, but it seems very sad, and it seems like the guy was just trying to spread the word about blockchain and is going to go to jail for it. Crypto exchange pays $24 million in transaction fees for $100,000 transaction. This one blew my mind, although there's been a bit more clarity since. So apparently Bitfinex was sending a $100,000 transaction. Somebody fat fingered it, meaning that they didn't look, they just hit it, or they put too many zeros when they entered their gas fee. Paid $24 million to send $100,000. Holy crap. Guys, check your transactions. Be careful. Be careful. Now, to be more importantly, though, this money has been returned by miners, but it did not have to be. They decided to return it, almost all of the money back today. So this has been resolved. But this shows even at the highest levels, you have to be extremely, extremely careful about how you send your transactions. I have to imagine that somebody got super fired. Yeah, I mean, David Kaminsky says, why go to North Korea? Not very smart for a smart guy. Listen, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I don't disagree with that, but going to jail for simply giving a blockchain talk seems a little bit ridiculous. Morgan Stanley is bullish on crypto bank Silvergate. The investment bank believes the price of Silvergate stock will moon. Basically, the price is trading, or was trading when this was written. I think it's up about 6%, $109. They gave it a target of $158 with the potential for $300. But of course, hedging, though he recognizes a risk, it could fall as low as $40. A lot of you don't know, Silvergate has been very, very quick to adopt cryptocurrency services, loaning against crypto, things like that. They're sort of leading the charge in the United States, showing what a bank could theoretically do within the current regulatory landscape to expand their crypto services. And Morgan Stanley, even in a lot, are saying that this is hugely bullish for Silvergate. Also, it should not go unnoticed here, but Silvergate actually manages their money responsibly, and that's part of it. We believe Silvergate should be valued based on its earnings growth, similar to other faster growing financials, rather than being compared against more traditional and slower growing banks, particularly given its minimal credit risk, as its loan portfolio is just 6% of earning assets. So this is a bank that's being exceptionally well run and should be compared more to the faster growing tech and financial companies than to old lumbering banks, of which it's getting its value. Next story, I love this, but this is a reiteration of something very old. There's nothing new here. Miami Mayor Suarez pitches crypto miners on area's nuclear plant. Proposal is part of a broader effort to lure entrepreneurs. Turkey Point isn't technically in Suarez's jurisdiction. So Turkey Point is the nuclear plant in Dade County in Miami. It's one of the larger nuclear plants in the United States. And for those who don't know, nuclear energy, while it has its problems, obviously, is completely clean energy, completely 100% clean energy, no carbon footprint with nuclear. And he is aggressively pitching miners to move down and set up shop right around that. Interestingly, like I said, that's not in his, it's not in Miami. It's in the county, so it's not under his jurisdiction. But he's been talking about this for a very long time. But it seems that moving much closer to making this happen, aggressively pitching these miners and trying to get them to move down to Miami, where we're seeing tons and tons of crypto services. Revolut to launch crypto token sources. This is really interesting. The timing is subject to approval from UK regulators, according to one of the sources. Oh, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Revolut, a fintech company with a $33 billion valuation that offers cryptocurrency buying as part of its services, is looking to launch its own cryptographic token, according to two people with knowledge of the plans. One of the people Coindesk spoke with said Revolut is working on something like an exchange token, such as Binance's BNB, as opposed to creating a stablecoin. Basically, this was be a coin that has utility, gives you discounts on trading fees, things like that. But I mean, this is just a massive, massive story. I mean, Revolut is a huge company, huge bank. We've never seen really a legacy company of this size talk about launching a token. This would have been more, in my mind, like if Coinbase, instead of doing an IPO or a direct listing, which they did, had launched a token to raise money and utilize that token for your trading fees on Coinbase. That was not going to happen in the United States. I have my doubts it will happen with UK regulators, but the very idea is extremely, extremely cool in my mind here. I don't know if you guys agree, but yes, I agree. Here we go. Snoop Dogg buys X copy Ethereum NFT sold for $3.9 million. The rapper hasn't slowed his NFT shopping since revealing himself as noted collector Cosmo de Medici. I don't know if you guys can see it here. Yeah, it moves. But I love Snoop. We've made a lot of comments about Snoop, talked about him a lot here, and maybe he knows something I don't. But how can that possibly be worth $3.9 million? $3.9 million for that. And what's interesting is, we know that Snoop is Cosmo de Medici here, the pseudonymous NFT collector. But bro, if you read these, the best part is the friends we make along the way. Welcome some asshole to the Medici Villa. Let's hope he's polite at Nana's Sunday dinner, bro. Listen, Cosmo de Medici may be a cover for Snoop Dogg's NFT buying, but there's no way that he's tweeting like a 30-year-old boring millennial, which is the tone of all of those tweets. There's no way that Snoop is running this account. Absolutely no way. So yes, I think it's a representation of what he's buying, but clearly he has some intern social media manager or something running the account because, to be quite frank, that ain't Snoop talking. I've talked to Snoop, and that is not how Snoop talks. But yeah, Cosmo de Medici buying more NFTs up to another 4 million. In the NFT news, Atari founder is launching augmented reality NFTs on Ethereum. This is really cool. Nolan Bushnell's NFT arcade cabinets can be viewed in 3D in your own home. Plus, there's some real-world perks attached. He's making the original cabinets of the original Atari games like Pong, as you can see here. Just really cool to me. If you're old school like I am and you have had the original Atari, I hate to admit that. But I'm old enough that I remember when the first Atari came out and the first game was Pong, which you just had these two paddles that move like this. You had a little controller that had a dial on it, and you and your friend had a ball that slowly went between them. Then we saw huge innovations like Defender and Asteroids, which are the most lame games now you could ever look at if you do decide to do that. But yes, I'm old, and I think this is cool because video games back then were awesome and were life changing. Facebook is spending $50 million to responsibly build the metaverse. Facebook and responsibility go together like lamb and tuna fish from the movie Big Daddy. No, is that the movie Big Daddy? Is that the one? Another Adam Sandler. I seem to be quoting Adam Sandler here. Facebook and responsibly. Good, guys. Facebook is spending a whole bunch of money to get involved in the metaverse. We saw Mark Zuckerberg taking meetings already in the metaverse with a little avatar that looks almost nothing like him, surprisingly. Facebook didn't do a very good job of that. But do we really want Facebook being the ones who build the metaverse for us? Like, if we have Facebook building the metaverse, doesn't that just mean that I'm going to go in the metaverse and still going to have the same lunatic, drunken ex-high school football players that are in my Facebook feed spouting conspiracy theories about microchips and the government in the pretend world instead of just in the real world? I mean, Facebook is for people who are like 60 years old at this point. Does anyone even use Facebook anymore? Are those people going to be in the metaverse? If they are, then our future probably looks like that cartoon movie, Wally. That's how I talk. Wally. That's the sound, right? It's going to look like Wally, this future where it's going to look like Wally, and it's just going to be a bunch of hugely overweight human beings who are kind of old and float around in these little cars doing Ready Player One stuff and never even walking or living in the real world. That's what the future is going to look like if we have Facebook. If we have Facebook driving the adoption of the metaverse. We all know, though, that the metaverse is the future and that all of the big companies, including the cryptocurrency ones, will be moving into that space. And listen, before I get done here, we talked about Facebook. Let's talk about the United States government. Senate GOP blocks bill that would fund government and suspend debt limit as time runs short to avoid shutdown and default. This happens all the time, right? But like, I posed this question on Twitter earlier. What would happen if an individual investor, if an individual person approached their finances in the same way that our government does? Oh, guys, I've maxed out my credit cards. I'm on debt. I would like some permission to raise my debt ceiling. Raise my debt ceiling. I'll pay you guys back eventually. I swear I'm good for it. And aren't we all told by Gary Gensler, who goes and makes videos for college kids, start early, save money, your money will grow? Is the government doing that? Is that the example that we're getting from them? No. They just spend more than they make, always spending more than they make. Janet Yellen pointed out that the United States government now spends $50 billion a day to run. $50 billion a day. Sometimes that number is up to $300 billion on any given day. She said now that if we don't get this under control by like October 18th, the Treasury Department, her department, will no longer have enough money to run the government, that the United States government needs to get it together and raise the debt ceiling. I want to raise my debt ceiling. I know that all of you want to raise your debt ceiling. Need a new house? Raise my debt ceiling. Raise my debt ceiling. Why not? And then in other government news, Dallas Fed President Robert Kaplan resigns amid scrutiny over trading, hours after Boston College steps down. These are the guys setting monetary policy for the United States, and they're using the knowledge of that monetary policy to trade stocks and make money. Oh, well, we know that the Fed is going to inject a whole lot of money into the stock market, so we should probably buy a shit ton of stocks. That's what these guys did. Now, listen, Eric Rosengren from Boston, who's been there for like 30 years at the Boston Fed, I think he's been the president for 16 years, he said it's for health reasons. Health reasons right after getting caught for insider trading. And the Dallas president, Robert Kaplan, is now resigning within hours. And we know that he was aggressively buying and selling and trading stocks while the Fed was setting monetary policy in the United States. Oh, by all means, let's let the guys who are running the Fed and setting monetary policy basically for the entire world aggressively trade stocks. But no, Gary Gensler, let's block Coinbase from giving your average person the opportunity to make 4% on their money. It's absolutely absurd. It's insane. In this country, the rich get away with whatever the hell they want. Take that up a level. The politicians really get away with whatever the hell they want. And the small guy is left always holding the bag. The little guy is always left holding the bag with no opportunity, no way to grow their money, sat there living paycheck to paycheck, only with cash to save and no ability to grow that money. This shit is such garbage and is such an indictment of our crappy system. Sorry, guys, that just pisses me off. That's everything that I have for you today. I appreciate you all tuning in. I did not mention in the beginning the contest. We got to 104,000 followers, which is amazing. Thank you guys so much. And so, yeah, the contest is closing on Friday. We're going to be randomly picking the 10 winners of $500, giving away $5,000 of my own sweet Bitcoin and Ethereum. Last time I did a giveaway was like December, and I gave away thousands of dollars. I was giving away like $100 a day or something for over a month. That money like tripled in value, so I gave it away in Bitcoin. So that will happen here again. You get $500 in Bitcoin or Ethereum one day. That's going to be $5,000. So guys, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel. You probably already are, and then go ahead in the link right down below, click on it, and you can do one of those thingies there as many times as you want and enter. Guys, that is all that I have for you today. I know you guys are asking for low cap gems. Not my thing, buddy. Not my thing. I don't really try to get people into low cap gems. Nothing wrong with that, but really not my style, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate your time and you always showing up to listen, guys. All I can say is parting words. We share the news, we look at the news, we read all of this. It doesn't really matter long term. Do not make your financial decisions based on the hype and FOMO and fear perpetuated by your daily news stories in crypto. You will drive yourself absolutely insane. Just buy, hold, keep up with what's going on, but don't get emotionally attached to it because none of it really matters in the long term. Until tomorrow, when I'll have 2 live streams. Peace.
Let's go.